So when you think of a farm animal, a sheep, a pig, a cow, what's the first thing that comes to mind? For a lot of us, it's this image of simple, instinct-driven creatures. But what if that whole picture is just wrong? Well, the latest science is starting to tell a completely different story, and honestly, it's way more fascinating.
So, that's the big question, right? Are these animals actually smarter than we've been giving them credit for? I mean, the stereotype is that they're just driven by basic needs. But is that the whole story? Or is it maybe just the story that's been convenient for us to believe? Get ready to challenge some of those old ideas, because a whole bunch of new research is uncovering some really surprising intelligence in the animals we see every day. We're talking complex problem solving and even how they try to communicate with us.
Okay, so let's start with what scientists call physical cognition. It's a fancy term, but it's basically all about how an animal gets a handle on its physical world. You know, objects, space, cause and effect. This is the toolkit they use to find food, stay safe, and just navigate their day-to-day lives.
A really key piece of this puzzle is something called object permanence. You know this one. It's the game of peekaboo you play with a baby. When they finally get that you're still there, even when your hands are covering your face, that's it. It's a huge cognitive leap, because it means you can hold a picture of the world in your mind.
And get this, goats are pros at this. In experiments, researchers would hide a treat and then move it around, sometimes in a really tricky roundabout way. And the goats? They could totally track where the treat should be, even when it was out of sight. That shows a really sophisticated mental map of their world. It's way beyond just simple instinct.
All right, let's kick it up a notch. How about reasoning by exclusion? This is basically a logic puzzle. Imagine I have two cups, and I tell you a treat is under one of them. If I lift up the first cup and show you it's empty, well, you don't even need to see under the second cup, right? You just know the treat is there. You figured it out by process of elimination. The big question is, can farm animals do that?
And this is where it gets really interesting, because we see this huge difference between two animals we think of as pretty similar. Goats totally nailed it. You show them the empty cup, they immediately go to the other one. They reasoned it out. But sheep? They just kept guessing randomly. Scientists think this might actually be linked to how they eat. Goats are really picky browsers, always making choices, and that might have pushed their brains to evolve these more flexible problem-solving skills.
But you know, what's really crucial here isn't just what we know, it's what we don't. Just look at this chart. See all those spots that say no data? For super common animals like cattle, we have these massive blind spots. This science is really just getting started.
I mean, this quote from the research paper just says it all, doesn't it? We're barely scratching the surface here. And it seems like every new study that comes out is telling us that we've been seriously underestimating what's going on in these animals' heads.
Okay, so we've moved on from the physical world of objects and puzzles to something way more complicated, the social world. See, living in a group takes a whole different kind of brain power. It's not just about finding food anymore, it's about navigating all these complex relationships, understanding who's who and, communicating.
So, one of the most basic social skills is just knowing who's who. And it turns out farm animals are experts at this. They don't just see a big blur of other animals or a bunch of identical humans. Nope. They can pick out and remember specific individuals, and they use all sorts of clues to do it. Faces, how you're built, even the color of the jacket you're wearing.
And their memory for this stuff is just incredible. Take sheep, for example. They can recognize and remember the faces of at least 50 different individuals. And that includes both other sheep and humans for more than 2 years. That is a serious social superpower, and it's what helps them keep their flock stable.
Okay, so they know who we are. That's pretty cool. But does that social smarts go any deeper? I mean, do they actually try to communicate with us? Do they see us as just part of the scenery, or do they get that we can actually help them out?
And the answer, which is just amazing, is yes. So when you give a goat or a horse a problem they can't solve, like a sealed box with a treat inside, they don't just get frustrated and give up. They'll actually look at the box, then look at a nearby human, then look back at the box. That gaze alternation is a super clear signal. They're basically saying, hey, you with the thumbs, a little help here?
But it gets even crazier than that. They're not just asking for help randomly. They seem to get the concept of attention. A goat is way more likely to try and get your help if you're actually facing them than if your back is turned. This suggests they have some idea of what we're seeing or paying attention to, which is a building block for what scientists call a theory of mind. Just wild.
Now, this isn't just about collecting cool animal facts. All this research has some really profound real-world consequences. Once we know that these animals have such rich cognitive lives, it forces us to ask a tough question. What does this actually mean for how we raise them? It makes us look at everything, from welfare to ethics, in a completely new light.
So this new knowledge really changes things in three big ways. First, we can improve their welfare by giving them what's called cognitive enrichment, basically puzzles and challenges that keep them from getting bored out of their minds. Second, it changes how we should interact with them. If a cow remembers that one person who was rough with her, that fear sticks around. And finally, it opens up a much bigger ethical can of worms.
This need for mental stimulation is perfectly captured by this amazing behavior called contra-freeloading. It sounds complicated, but it's super simple. An animal will often choose to solve a puzzle to get food, even when the exact same food is sitting right there for free. So why would they do that? Well, it seems that using their minds, solving problems, it's rewarding in itself. It feels good to be smart.
And all of this leads us to a final and maybe a more challenging thought. If we accept that these animals aren't just simple creatures, that they have these complex inner lives, well, where do our responsibilities to them end? The researchers themselves bring up this really provocative idea in their paper. They point out that if our only goal is good welfare, just preventing pain and suffering, then you could argue it doesn't really matter what we do in the end, as long as it's painless. But does that feel right? See, once you recognize these complex cognitive abilities, the whole ethical game changes. It forces us to ask a much harder question. If an animal can remember its friends, if it enjoys solving problems, if it can ask us for help, is just giving it a life free from pain and fear really enough to meet our full ethical obligation? And that's the question this science ultimately leaves us with. It's not just about what these animals can think. It's about what we should think in return. For a being that has a mind, is a life that's merely free from suffering truly enough?